Hello, everyone. I can't see many videos or mics. I don't think there might be a chat box here, but so if you can hear me or see me, just give us a thumbs up or signal a yes, and we can start cracking on. Let's see. Yeah, cool. Cool. Right, we'll wait maybe a couple more minutes for the latecomers, and then we can start to crack on. I'll give you a quick brief of who we are. So it's going to be me and Callum running the session today. I'm Jordan. It does look like I'm Matthew, unfortunately. He's head of sales. I'm using his laptop. So these guys. I am head of the engineering. And my lovely assistant today is Callum, all the way. He's actually in America at the minute. Yeah, he's head of AI. So,
Nice to meet you all.
yep, cool. A couple more minutes and we'll crack on. Give me a thumbs up if anyone is in Hawaii right now. Is anyone lucky enough to be at the World Champs? Oh, nice. And another thumbs up if the weather's better than the UK because it's been pretty bad today. It's either a sustained thumb up or it's good. So either or. Cool. All right. So I'll give you a quick brief of sort of the structure of the session today. So there's going to be sort of 5 or 6 main talking points. I want to give you a quick introduction or a quick brief of sort of the body rocket system, what it comprises of. Maybe go slightly into detail a little about how the system works. Could answer some questions a bit further down the road. And then I'll go into sort of the initial setup of the system, how you basically put it on your bike, how complicated that process is. If it's complicated at all, it's not really that, it's not too hard. And then we'll start to go into sort of the data side, how we look at the data, and Callum will sort of detail all of this sort of stuff. Like we have a Garmin app, sort of go into the live aspects of the data, and then we'll go into more detailed sort of the dashboards, we call them, but the post-process, the cooked data. We'll go into that, and then finally we'll speak about Brian, who's sort of our AI guy who can help you guide you through a bit more of the nitty-gritty details. If you have any questions, I don't know if anyone's got mic control on this, but I'm sure there's some sort of way you can ask questions. We have already had some in anyway. So if you've already posted a question in by email or whatever, I'm going to try and cover those in the speech anyway. So yeah, it's probably going to be 15, 20 minutes of myself talking, probably a similar time period for Callum talking. And then, yeah, any questions at the end, feel free to, someone's also in the meet room. Let's try and get them in. Yeah, so I think it's probably now is a good time to start. So yeah, as you can see behind me, we do have a bike and it is equipped on the body with the body rocket system. So the system sort of comprises primarily of 5 sensors. 4 of the sensors are sort of, they isolate you, the rider from the bike. So we measure force. I've actually got a load cell here. So these guys measure force, very similar to a bathroom scale. So when you put these sensors on your bike, we measure vertical force, but you also importantly measure the horizontal force. And the way the system kind of works is we isolate the rider from the bike. So every contact point you have, we have a load cell, and we measure that horizontal force. So when there's no external forces being applied, so say if you're on a turbo trainer and you're just pedaling, your horizontal force equals 0 because every force has an equal and opposite force, Newton's third law. As soon as you have an external force applied to the body, what we're measuring, that's when we calculate or measure the drag force. And when you have that horizontal force, it's actually quite easy to gain a CDA value from that. It's a very large component of the equation. Yeah, if you ask any, if I'm running too fast, sort of shout at me, Callum, or anyone else who has any sort of mic control, but I'm going to keep speeding through stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much the system. The other component of the system is we need to know airspeed. So we do have an airspeed device at the front. Again, the whole reason for that is it's another component of the equation for someone else is in the meet room, to calculate CDA. So yeah, the setup of the system, we need to know quite precisely the angle of where all of these sensors are relative to gravity. So the whole point of when you put these sensors on your bike is we need to make sure we know what angle they sit at on the bike. So we ask you to basically put, when you have the body rocket box, it comes out and you start to put components on your bike. It's probably a good time to say what bikes we fit. We're going to fit the top 10 most popular bikes at Kona, as well as a standard 31.8 round bar. And if there is any other bike what a lot of people ride and they've requested I have, something what's not in that category, we can have a look at making adapters for it. If it's a popular frame, I think, the Canyon and older Canyon bikes are still very popular. The old Treks are still quite popular frames. We want to make adapters for these. And it's going to be with a process of we're going to keep extending, how many bikes we can fit to. It's just a game, really. It's not that complicated, really, to make adapters. So yeah, the whole point of the installation process is we need to know what angle these sit at quite precisely. So you basically bolt them onto your bike. It will be sort of torque or Allen keys, no special fancy tools. We pretty much say you can fit a stem, change wheels and stuff like that. You can do it yourself. You're not going to need a mechanic to do this job. The handlebar and saddle installation process, we call it. It's put the sensors on the bike and do a few turns of the bike on the same point on the floor. Hit OK. We have an app as well, so it guides you through. I'm just, spieling at you, but we do have an app that has tutorial guides on there as well. And the handlebar and saddle installation process takes me about 5 minutes, but I've done it for 2 years now, so it might take 10 minutes if you're not used to putting the sensors on a bike. So it's quite a fast process. The second step is we need to know the angle of the pedals. Someone else is in the meet room, sorry. We need to know the angle of the pedals relative to the crank arm. And we need to know a position of a magnet we actually to put on your chainstay as well. And again, this is all because we need to calculate the horizontal force. All these measurements are really, really critical for that. The pedal installation, very, very similar to how you put a pedal in, Allen key around the back or a spanner. Torque to 30 Newton meters, and then you'll do some sort of funny installation where you are pulling from a very specific point. It takes maybe 5 minutes to do, and the installation of the magnet again takes 5 minutes. But I think the first time you do it, it probably takes 10 minutes per test. So there's 3 main tests you have to do, or protocols, to calibrate the bike. Once the sensors are all on the bike and the app's given you a big thumbs up and said, well done for your hard work, you then jump on the bike on a turbo trainer, and it's actually how we kind of calibrate the bike. So you do around 2 minutes, not strenuous at all. You just pedal, and the app and the device itself sort of understands you and calibrates for you. And then after that, to be honest with you, you are ready to head out on the open road. So yeah, we are currently only have Shimano SPD SL pedals. We're forecasting to go, widen the range, but research suggests it's the most popular pedal system out there. We have a Apple iOS app. Again, it's just the most popular. It's a good starting point for us, and we'll slowly build up to Android OS as well. And we were also working on Garmin. We're in the Garmin IQ, sort of the Connect IQ store. So currently restricted to those, but startup nature, we want to develop and sort of keep pushing past those and work with other devices as well. Then finally, you basically download the Garmin Connect IQ app, connect it to the body rocket system, very, very similar how you would connect a power meter. So you connect a sensor to the Garmin, and then you have pretty much a view of CDA live when you go out on the road. So we do operate very, very, it's a very similar technology to how a wind tunnel works. So if you know how a wind tunnel works, you have to zero the system before every single ride. It's not like a power meter where you might do it every week. You have to do this every time you go on your bike. It takes 6 seconds to do. It is a really, really short process. So just before you're about to go on a bike ride, you get your phone out or you click on a special a lap feature on a Garmin. That will zero your ride and then you're ready to go away. And yeah, I think it's probably quite a good time to tell you what routes you can and can't do. Currently, we have 3 sort of courses. What we ask people to do currently, we have a loop. So this can be a training ride, say of a 6-kilometer loop. It can't be anything over plus or minus 6 degrees. That's sort of our design specification where we work towards. And before you kind of do this route, you would train the body rocket system on this loop. So you would actually ride the loop before you want to test on it. So you would go out, you cycle this 6K, come back in, and then you're ready to ride that loop with the body rocket system. So you have live feedback during the whole loop. And again, you also have this, I'll let Callum explain a bit detail in a bit more in the future, but you also have these massive dashboards where really, really tell you a huge amount of detail about live CDA and post-process CDA. The second course you can do is out and backs. So it's pretty simple. You find a 500 meter, kilometer, 2-kilometer stretch of road where you can go. Do you have to train the loop every time before you want to ride it? No. So thanks for that, Wolfgang. So every time, so say if you have one loop around your house, all you have to do is ride that loop once, and then it will be saved on the body rocket device, and then you would never have to train it again. So yeah, once you've kind of calibrated the route, then it's ready to ride for yourself whenever. So yeah, hope that answers that question. The out and back, this is actually what we did a lot with Christian and Gustav when we sort of go see them out and back. So it's, again, a stretch of road where there's a clear out and back. We actually use roundabouts quite a lot because you can keep or maintain speed. And there's basically a start and finish line. So this is really, really good if you really want to have a dedicated training session or an aero training session where you can go through quite a lot of positional changes dynamically. And then when you want to, say, change your elbow position, change your helmets, it's a really fast way of drilling through lots of things. It's actually really interesting when you look at some of the data we get off. So for Christian's Paris prep, we were doing quite a lot of the out and backs, and you actually see quite a lot of, like, I don't know what to call it because there's not a metric for it, but I'm going to call it sort of fatigue aero, where you go into a wind tunnel. I'm not sure if any of you guys have been to a wind tunnel, done aero testing before, but generally speaking, you only hold position for 30 seconds to a minute. So when Christian's out on his hoods, he's actually quite aerodynamic on his drops on his road bike, but he's only aero for sort of 5 minutes. He really, really relaxes into a non-aerodynamic position. So this is sort of some of the learnings you can take away from using a system like this, where you can, you have aerodynamic feedback for not just 30 seconds, but potentially hours, and you can really learn how your fatigue changes your aerodynamics or vice versa. And the final sort of testing scenarios, we've got a regular training route, we've got out and backs, and then finally we have a simple loop. It can be anywhere from a velodrome, it can be even a running track. Again, when we see anyone who does altitude training, sometimes, well, a lot of the time it's in the mountains, and it's quite a hard place to actually train aero to maintain that speed. So yeah, we've done work on running tracks before, and it works sublimely. So yeah, we're really, really happy with that. But yeah, these 3 courses, you will see, I think Callum will probably share a video pretty soon of what you actually kind of see on the Garmin. So yeah, I'll probably hand it over to Callum now. It's probably a good time, unless anyone's got any questions around the initial setup, what the body rocket system is, or how you collect data. Obviously, we can have questions at the end, but if you have any questions on those 3 topics, so out and back routes only. So we do ask for the test section to be around 800 meters. You can use 500 meters, but it means you'll be doing the loop over and over again. When it comes to when I do a protocol with an athlete, I like to have an 800-meter test stretch. Let me just set that in. I like to have an 800-meter actual test stretch, because what normally happens is you want a time for speed build up and sort of slow down, and aerodynamics changes at different velocities, as everyone probably knows in here. So you want to have like a nice clear section of where you can maintain a constant speed. So I find 800 meters to be quite a nice, I would say, low end of good. If you do anything shorter, you're just going to be going up and down the test stretch a few more times. We tend to do 800 meters and ask the athlete to do it 6 times, not just for the repeatability, but it's more to do with is the athlete fatiguing in the position as well. So you can look at other metrics. What are still unknown is we're still developing these metrics as well. Like, cool. Is there any more questions around my spiel? I don't think so. So either I've done a good job, or I've gone through it too fast and people are confused. But yeah, I'd like to hand over to Callum now, if that's all right, Callum, and we can discuss everything to do with data.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for introducing all that, Jordan. Just to introduce myself again, I'm Callum. I'm the head of AI and aerodynamics at Body Rocket. And my role is to really just play around with the data and do all sorts of magic to make it look lovely. So I'll just share initially what you will see when you're riding, the live experience. So just bear with me 1 second and I'll share my screen here. So here's an example of a rider looking at their Garmin live whilst they're riding. So you see the CDA populated just in a normal Connect IQ field, and then you have the yaw angle and airspeed, and you can just look down on that as you will, as you'd like, live whilst you're riding. Just one anecdote is we were testing once in Marrakesh, and we had a rider who had a really long tail helmet. I think, was Jordan, were you there, Jordan, or is it other people? But anyway, they had a long tail helmet, and they looked down, and every time they looked down, they saw a spike in their CDA. But this is all part of the live experience here, so you can just see the live CDA whilst you're riding. You can kind of make adjustments with respects to what you're doing in the moment. So
I think just quickly on that, Callum, it's probably worth noting on the screen you can kind of see 3 live metrics. So this is a data field. If anyone's knows their Garmin's, this is a data field right now. We also have an app in development, but this is the data field. So the top half of the screen are live metrics, and then below that are the lap CDAs. So you can see we have, say, if someone's doing an out and back, it will come up on the lap. So it will give you the lap average of your CDA during, say, either a loop or an out and back stretch. So just worth detailing that.
Yeah, nice ad. Thanks for that. So that's your live experience whilst you're out riding. But once you've gone riding, you can get home, sip your coffee, and take a look at your ride just as you'd like in the Garmin Connect app here. So as mentioned, we have our Body Rocket Garmin app, and you can just see, should still be able to see my screen, I hope. Yes, you can. You can see this loop where a certain rider's gone out riding, and then they can look at their CDA, their ground speed, their airspeed, and yaw angle. And this is just kind of very much a high-level overview of your ride, and you can just take a look at that as and when you please afterwards. But as Jordan alluded to earlier on, we delve a little bit deeper. Of course, with the 4 sensors on the bike, you can get a really rich data set. And here's just an example of one data set or dashboard, as Jordan said, where we have a high-level overview of the CDAs from each test. So in this case, a rider did a baseline run, so you've got to start off with a baseline to compare everything to. They did a long reach with an aero helmet, a long reach with a skin suit and an aero helmet, and then this last configuration but on a 3-kilometer pursuit effort. So you can then see and look at the different trends in CDA just by looking at this initial landing page here. Because we're measuring all these amazing forces as well, you can start taking a look at your hydration. We're not only measuring the horizontal forces, as Jordan mentioned, we're measuring vertical forces and the moments as well. So in this case, you can take a look at the rider's hydration levels and see how their weight changes throughout the day. And interestingly enough, this rider did have a little drink throughout testing. You can then take a look at the weight distribution across the pedals, handlebar, just as a run-by-run overview, but you can also take a look at the weight distribution and roll, pitch and roll, as a time series for each run. So you can see here that this rider started off with not leaning too much on the saddle, but then they started to lean a little bit further back. You can even see that here in their position on the saddle. So these are just all these metrics that you can get out of the system, and you can really dig into it and see, what is interesting. On this high-level overview, I shared that we show the time savings. So here's the time savings over 30 kilometers. So you can make it bespoke to whatever course you're riding, or you can just take a look at the watt savings, as is very commonly done. So here, in this case, for this testing session, the rider did a baseline. They changed their bars, so they moved their bars in 6 centimeters, which gave them a 9.6 watt deficit compared to the baseline. And then they did the bars out 2 centimeters from the baseline with a different helmet, and then the bars out 2 centimeters with a different helmet as well. So that's a Giro helmet and a HJC. So you can also take a look at the watt savings. Along with this, we also have our power meter pedals. So the pedals that we have on the bike, as a result of having to be super accurate in measuring. Okay, yes.
I think in essence, like as soon as you make pedals will have to measure horizontal and vertical forces, you make an extremely accurate power meter, extremely high sampling rate as well. So you can really look at, I think if anyone knows much about psychodynamics, we can take that kind of to the next level. So we have partnership with Silverstone as well. They're actually buying our pedals, not to do with aerodynamics, but they're really interested in the performance of the power meter itself. So obviously, when you buy a system like this, you have an extremely accurate power meter as well.
Yes, exactly. Super accurate. And you can look at the pedal phase just as you can here. So, this is just a very whistle-stop tour of all the data that we collect from our system. But of course, it can be seen as very complicated. And while in the wind tunnel, you would have a expert in the room, and essentially, Brian, our AI assistant, is to be that expert in the room. So there's been a number of cases where we've had people take systems and try to use them, but they have no idea what to test. So Brian, being our expert here, is in a chatbot form. And you can see here where I've asked Brian a pretty standard question. Hey, give me a testing protocol. And Brian here is just sharing a positional map, essentially. So starting off with your high bar, a low bar, a long reach, and a short reach, trying to map out your position so you know how your body interacts with the air. And as you can see, Brian also tells you that you need to take at least 8 minutes for each test run, which is kind of indicates how long you need to ride. If you know how fast you ride, then you know you need to ride for about 8 minutes. And to keep consistency and reduce that fatigue, then you have a 5-minute break in between. So this is just an example of Brian giving you that initial test, so you can then start riding and start testing. So once you've done your tests, you can then ask Brian, okay, now I've done my test, take a look at my data. So here's an example of some of my data that I've collected, where I did a baseline position, a head up, a head down, and then hands over the aero extensions. And essentially, I'm asking Brian, hey, analyze my data and tell me what I need to do next. And this is simply just through analyzing the session. But Brian then tells you the runs with the top 3 lowest CDAs. You then take a look at your variability throughout the ride, and then recommends what you need to test next. And then this brings on that iterative experience where you then start off with a testing protocol, you follow that, Brian can analyze it, and then find that perfect aerodynamic fit for you. So I really did speed through all of that. So if there are any questions, feel free to ask. But essentially, we get a lot of data, but it can be distilled down and made simple through the use of our AI system, Brian.
Yep. Nice one, Callum. There is some questions what I haven't answered yet. There was some, obviously, what popped up during. There was some questions what got asked before. So if everyone is all right, I'm sure the people in this meeting room would appreciate some of the previous questions. So someone's asked, is there a road bike version? Not right now. So we have a full effort to try, and we're going to get the TT/triathlon version over the line, and we have no plans right now to commercialize the road bike system. We just needed to help Christian as much as we could at Tokyo. So unfortunately, it's a no. So if you're a road cyclist, learn how to ride a time trial bike or go into triathlon if you want to use the body rocket system. The second question was, is Body Rocket for professionals only? Not at all. Obviously, a lot of professionals use them, use Body Rocket. We've got Christian and Gustav, who are actually quite avid users. You mentioned there's a lot of questions coming in, so I'll answer them in a second. Let me finish this one. Yeah, Alex Dowsett uses it. Indy Lee's used it. So there's a lot of high-profile athletes using the system. But really, we want to make aero for the masses. We want to make sure everyone can have one of these on their bike and understand which helmet is the fastest, because aerodynamics at the end of the day is quite an individual thing. I'm sure everyone's aware one helmet's fast for some people. You watched the World Championships last week of the track, and everyone doesn't converge on one helmet. Everyone's very, very slightly different. So yeah, it's just we want to make sure aero for the masses, really. I'm going to go through and have a quick read. Of the train. You mentioned versions for 10 specific frames. How transferable is a single system across different bikes? Yeah, good question. So say if you had two completely different bikes, you would need two adapter sets, what can be bought online, but you can use the same system for two bikes for sure. Yeah. Probably one for Callum here. Is Bright Chatbot included when you buy the Body Rocket system?
So if you purchase on Kickstarter now, you'll have support from Brian for 3 years. And that's what we're launching with at the moment. So if you purchase on Kickstarter now, you have support from Brian for 3 years.
Yep. We have a question around the power meter claims of 0.1%, as the industry standard is 1 or 2%. The best thing to do is, I think we should share a post around this and make it public. So I would like to do that, not in this webinar, but I would like to do that so everyone can see. There will be a white paper, I'm sure, around that in our archive. So let me pull one of those up, share it, and let me also grab your name so I can also share one directly. I think that is Jan. So let me just write that down. My laptop works. Okay. Can you evaluate the impact of different bikes or wheel configurations? We can't, no. So the whole reason Body Rocket exists is kind of in the name. It's to do with the athlete's body. So we really care about whatever's on top of the bike.
Hi everyone, it's Eric, the founder of Body Rocket. Just wanted to jump in here for a moment. Jordan's response to this question is sticking specifically to our direct force drag measurement system, which is of course the core benefit of the Body Rocket system and allows you to take aerodynamics past testing and into training and integrate this into your everyday workouts and routines. However, the Body Rocket system does have a very high quality power meter and the airspeed that's required to do the calculations the same way all of our competitors do. And so there is a test mode that you can use in controlled situations, just like all the competitive products, and you will be able to test any component on the bike with that mode.
Is the system designed to regularly train with, or just testing? Yeah, so the whole point is we want to stop the idea of you have to go and aero test. We want to integrate it into your training. So whenever you train, you also learn about aero. Like it used to be the pound meter industry. It used to be very, if you want to train, you need to coach with a pound meter. We want to do the sort of the same. Everyone, well, I say everyone, a lot of people now have a pound meter, and we want to be exactly the same. Compared to the Aeropod, you're talking about more than 4 times the price. Is the difference in accuracy worth it? So yeah, so the Aeropod itself, or many other aero sensors, and there's lots. Ghibli's one of them. The way they calculate aerodynamics is extremely different to what we do. I think the conditions have to be extremely controlled for one of these devices to work. I'm not really slating them, but if you had a velodrome accessible to you all times, they can work pretty well. If you want to test and train outdoors, they start to get slightly less accurate. The whole point of our device is you train with it and you learn about your aerodynamics all the time when you're riding. It's not really something you can do. I personally think as well, using them a few times, I think their software lets them down slightly as well. We're really trying to make sure our software is leaps and bounds above the rest of the competition as well, to make it the aero journey as easy as possible. We don't want to have a mass equation staring you down the face. We want to make sure it's an accessible approach to riding. On the power reading around the pedal stroke, can you use to optimize fit asymmetric chain rings? It's not our full focus as a technology team, to be honest with you, is making sure the CDA value is as precise and accurate, repeatable as possible. When it comes to looking at asymmetric chain rings or Q rings, I haven't looked too much into it, to be honest with you. But it will, yeah, given the data rate, you can look at things like that too. You can definitely look at how your power profile is through a pedal stroke. So you can dig deep into asymmetric chain rings. We do look at different crank sizes and stuff like that. We've never done asymmetric chain rings. Okay. I think that is all the questions on here.
I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to just circle back to that question about the Aeropod, because it's a very, interesting question, because we're fundamentally measuring, we're directly measuring the drag force of the rider, which is fundamentally different to how these other systems work. And they've been around for the last 15 years and not caught on, because they are not as accurate as directly measuring the force, and they're pretty difficult to use. So yeah, I just want to reiterate, because as part of what I'm doing with Brian and this AI assistant, is to genuinely make aerodynamics easy through getting accurate data, but not only accurate data, through that data to be analyzed properly. Because for someone just to collect a bunch of data and try and work through it all by themselves, it can be a challenge if they're not an engineer. And this is where this comes in. This is where Brian comes in, so it can actually look at your data and ensure that you are following your aerodynamic journey and actually getting as aerodynamic as you can. So yeah, I just wanted to raise that as well, just to make it super clear. We are actually quite a bit different from Aeropod and the like.
Yeah, so if you know how a wind tunnel works, we work in exactly the same way a wind tunnel works. They pretty much have one of these, if you can see my screen, underneath the floor of the wind tunnel, and then when you blow air, it measures the horizontal force. So in principle, we are a wind tunnel, but we've taken all of the sensors, miniaturized them, and put them on a bike. So that's where we're at with the technology. There was one other question we asked before, and someone obviously wants some hot tips on how to get faster. So they asked, what's the biggest gain you've seen in a single change? I think the biggest game we normally have with people is when you alter arm positions. I think we've probably seen 10 or 20 watts alone from one of these changes. If you change the stack height or the tilt of the bars, it really affects the leading edge of the aerodynamics. And it's a really, really fun one to play with, to be honest with you, because a lot of people, obviously, they don't have access to technology like this, but now it's available for everyone. You can start to see, oh, it's comfortable, this is great, but now you can start to go, it's actually faster, or it's slower, or it's not the right choice. These bars aren't for me. This angle's not good enough. And you probably see some pretty crazy stuff we've been doing with Christian and Gustav, and they really, really enjoy pushing the boundaries of what is physically possible, what your body can do, and they're a massive driver into. And so is their coach, to be honest with you, Olaf. He's a big driver in pushing hard what's physically possible. It gets to the point where we're designing special adapters for them because they want to just Superman it, really. So it's gonna entail in a very, very interesting race, I'm sure. Sorry, there's a few more questions. Do you always see gain after adopting? I think, are you talking potentially if you've done a change, you've tested it, it's faster for your test, and then you go out and you see the gain's gone? Is that what you mean? And if you do mean that, you do have this thing where you kind of fatigue. So it's always nice to have the wind tunnel. You don't have the luxury of sitting in the same position or the position you think you're in for an hour. You're given that really short window of opportunity to test it, and it's normally 45 seconds or maybe 3 minutes if you're doing your sweeps. So yeah, you do see drifts. A really interesting one as well is we were actually in an outdoor velodrome with Christian, and he hasn't been on a velodrome for a year, he said, and you could actually see in the data he was getting comfortable riding the bike in the velodrome, because you've got to lean into the corners and stuff like that. So you could see him slowly understanding the environment he was in, and you see that in out on the road. You just get comfortable in your position. So yeah. Presumably the 10 frames you're prioritized all have good adjustability. So what we aim to do is we aim to put the load cell. If you talk about adjustability, I think you're probably talking about the handbar adjustability. So yeah, so what we do is we make an adapter for the 10 bikes, and the adapter itself will basically plug straight. It will replace your monorise or dual stack. So this guy here, it appends to the top of the base bar. So you don't really need, say, a Canyon or a Trek. You don't need their adjustability. We're going to build the adjustability on top, and we're making ours hyper adjustable. We're making sure we can fit a range of sort of sync bars, drag to zero bars, so all the premium bars, but we're also going to have our own adjustability system. So we don't rely on a manufacturer's adjustability. We are making our own as we speak. So they are extremely adjustable, yeah. Can you explain the Alex Dowsett packages that are available on Kickstarter? So I think the best thing to do here is head to Alex's website. He has all the packages on his website, and he will be able to detail it much more than me. Fortunately, I'm not really a sales guy. I'm I'm head of engineering at Body Rocket. So the best thing to do is go, straight to Alex's website. They are all mentioned in there as well. So I hope that helps. Sorry, I couldn't really answer that one. Can you show how the system... yeah, okay. I'm just going to make this full screen so I can see my own camera. See if I can do that quick. Okay, this is going to be very dodgy because it's a laptop. But I think you want to see how we're attached here. So I'm going to bring the bike a little bit closer. Okay, and point this guy down a little bit. And it's still shorts weather in Brighton, obviously. So here we go. I'm not sure how clear this is going to be, but obviously we have a Trinity base bar here. And then this piece here is the adapter plate. And this will be unique for obviously the top 10 bikes in Kona. So this is the piece what mounts the base bar to the load cell. And obviously you've got the load cell here. I think you can probably just about see maybe this way. Yeah, so base plate, load cell, and then we have our whole adjustability stack on top as well. So sorry if that was pretty bad, but fortunately, yeah. Okay, I hope that went through most of the questions. Can you test multiple athletes on one system? Is it easy to change? Yeah, so in the future, we're releasing a coach. I don't know if you're a coach yourself or you say multiple athletes in one system. I'm assuming you're instructing people or coaching people. We will be releasing a coaching specific device, a bit like the Alex Dowsett ones. There'll be a larger package for coaches, and it would include all the possible adapters we've ever made, as well as slightly different analysis tools in the dashboards. If you want to change from one bike to another bike, the specification we have, it should take around half an hour to install one. So I would give yourself an hour and a half to swap and change to another bike. Hope that answers that question. I'm also out of pre-meeting questions. It's definitely worth mentioning as well. We have just released a Kona special on the Kickstarter as of, I think, 2 days ago. So it's just 20% off the asking price. So when you say, when will this be available? Are you talking about the coach specific one, or are you talking about the product? Okay, I think there's a few people talking about when you're planning. Yeah, okay. There's a few coaches in here. Cool. We haven't converged on a release date yet for that. But when we do, I'm actually recording this so I can remember it's Paul and Peter. So I can get back to you individually when we have a date, if you like. But at the minute, we have no date for the coach specific one. Okay, no worries. Is there any more questions? We'll hold on for a couple more minutes. Cool. So I just
asking this question. I just got a message. So if you buy one on Kickstarter now, will we honour an upgrade to the coach package?
So the coach. Oh, sorry.
No, continue.
So the coach package we have discussed. It will be at a premium price because it would have all the adapters in what's again is a costly thing. Again, I wouldn't know what percentage of.
So if you buy Kickstarter now, we will honour the coach upgrade to the coach. We'll honour an upgrade to the coach package, obviously an additional cost with respect to that. So yes, you can buy Kickstarter now, and when we get the coach version available, we can then upgrade it.
There you go. Okay. The Blue and Eden position was after wind tunnel or body rocket. So they haven't actually been to a wind tunnel for around 2 years. They've done all their aero testing with us. So yeah, it's all with us out on the road aerodynamics.
Yeah, it was with us. They are superhuman. I tried riding Eden's bike, and it was too stretched out for me. But somehow he could just drill into it. What else?
If I understand how well the price is about 2,000, how accessible is the price for your average Joe? Well, yeah. So it does seem expensive, but at the other end of the spectrum, you've got wind tunnels, and you've got velodrome testing. What other companies? I won't name them, but it begins with A, Aero something, and they also offer packages for aero testing. And if you start to look at the forefront cost you're going to have to pay to have wind tunnel tests with the amount of tests you can do infinitely with a system on your bike, what tests it all the time, we actually think it's pretty well priced. You get one of the market leading power meters on your bike. You have an interface where you can really look at all the tests you've done. We think it's actually fairly reasonably priced. And yeah, I do understand the initial thought. It's like, wow, that's a lot of money, but you can spend that on a pair of wheels. Frame sets are much more than that. And this is really learning about your aerodynamics. You're going to make much more of an improvement if you know how your body flows through the air in comparison to dropping $2 or $3 grand on a pair of lightweight wheels, what are actually $7 grand. So there is things in the market what are much more, and we think it's fairly reasonable.
And regarding the jargon using the interface, yes, we have done some tests, and very limited though. But you know, with respect to when interacting with Brian, which is kind of the spearhead of this kind of interface with trying to, you know, get yourself aerodynamic, Brian can, you know, tailor himself to your own knowledge and what you understand. So if you don't have much knowledge behind the jargon of aerodynamics, then Brian can somewhat tailor his outputs to suit your own knowledge level. And if you are a little bit more well-versed in aerodynamics, then Brian can start throwing a bunch of jargon and you'll get it. So it's really a tailored experience for each user.
Okay, wait a couple more minutes and see if anyone's any burning questions. Yeah, so I'll just give a brief kind of conclusion. We'll go full circle, just so if people missed the front end of it, I'll run extremely fast through what we kind of went through today at super high level. So yeah, sort of spoke about the system, how it works. Super simple. We measure horizontal force on the bike. From there, so we isolate the rider from the bike using these little guys, load cells, and we measure the horizontal force. From there, you can basically gain a CDA value with if you have an airspeed measurement device on the front of your bike. Setup should take around half an hour when you put it on your bike. We're operating on Apple iOS currently, so we have an app that goes through tutorials. It gives you structured training plans, how you run the system. We also have a Garmin data fields and an app available on the Garmin IQ store already. So work with Garmin there. We are currently on Shimano SBD SLs, so that's the pedal system we're working with. What else? Yeah, loops, out and backs or training routes currently are what we want. And then dashboards
and you can look at that. Yeah, and you can look at that data live in your Garmin whilst you're riding. You can see your CDA for each lap that you do. If you do a loop, for example, once you've got your data, you can then look at it at the Garmin Connect app if you wish, or take a look at our slightly lower level dashboards, which have all the nitty-gritty details on your saddle position, your CDA values, the wind conditions. But if you don't want to dig into all of that, then Brian, our AI assistant, will look at the data for you and tell you what you need to test next so that you can get even more aerodynamic, making aerodynamics nice and easy.
Probably one for you there, Callum. There's one about Brian.
Yes. Brian will also, if you, for example, mention that you have an event that you're training for, Brian can then take a look at the weather data, for example. And when you start to get a large data pool of how your body interacts in different conditions, Brian can then recommend different setups for those different conditions. So, for example, Kona is well known for being having large crosswinds. There may be a setup for you which is better in high crosswind in compared to low crosswinds and calm conditions. So yes, essentially it's all about comparing all that data, so then you can then have these different kind of great positions for these different conditions instead of just eyeballing this one CDA, which is what everyone's doing at the moment. They're eyeballing one, set aerodynamic CDA. It's not the case. Wind conditions change, and temperature, elevation. There's all these different factors which may change the position that you need to be in, or setup that you need to have. So yes, essentially, Brian can take a look across different days as well.
2 secs. Right, there's another one. Having used various other airspeed sensor solutions, they all require a deep dive into data to ensure validity. They give you false results if you ride over differing parts of the road, so changing your CRR, that's the coefficient of rolling resistance. Changing gears, what's normally ETA in the equation, what I think this guy is talking about. So I think this needs to drive home the importance of we don't care about roller resistance. We don't care about drive chain losses because it's not part of our equation. So that's how Robert Chung's method of virtual elevation works. You could ride through mud and still know your body CDA with our system. We don't really care for rolling resistance at all. So yeah, hope that answers your question. We don't have to estimate anything. We measure everything. Is what I would say to that. So we don't really care about those things. Okay, it's getting time. Got a few minutes left. If anyone's got any more burning questions, ping them in the chat. And if not, I think the best thing to do is we have sold out on the Super Early Bird. On Kickstarter already. I think we did that in 24 hours, so we're really, really happy as a team. We have released a bit of a special as well because some of the guys on the team are in Kona, so there's a 20% off if you buy pretty much now on Kickstarter. I think there's 10 or 15 left, and some of them are already sold. So if you haven't checked us out on Kickstarter, go ahead, find us, just search Body Rocket Kickstarter into Google, it'll pop up straight away, and hopefully there's some more information on there as well. We can learn a bit more about the system. And there's some emails if you want to reach out to us individually. You can feel free to do that as well.
I'll mention again as well. Yep. I'll mention again. If you are a coach and you do want a system, we will honour an upgrade as well. So you can purchase it on Kickstarter now. And just to reiterate, we'll honour the coach package upgrade if you wished.
Another question has come in. It says, can I have access to direct data from all past rides? So I think this person speaks, say if you had the system for a year, can you see over time your CDA improvements? Yes, you can. Very similar to SS. If people use Strava, you can kind of go back on your history. Dashboards have the same functionality as that. You can go back in time, hopefully see you've got much more aero. I hear beer bellies are quite good for aerodynamics as well. So you can go back and you can see all past rides and what worked, what didn't work. And the nice thing about that is you build up that data. So you can have a really big metadata analysis really of comparing the more data accessible to Brian, as well as dashboards, as well as your own knowledge, you really start to build a big understanding of your personal aerodynamics. So yes, you can see past rides. Cool. All right. I hope everyone found it useful. Hopefully you got out what you expected. Maybe hopefully a little bit more. Okay, one more question has come in. It would be interesting to know what level you are on the app. So the app, the way it's structured right now is there's 5 main areas on the app. So normally when you have iOS, and I'm actually an Android user, sorry for everyone, but I don't know too much about iOS, but at the bottom you have 5 hotkeys, very similar to Strava. It's like ride, analyze. There's some sort of social media sort of button below there. The app currently looks quite similar to this, but instead of those, we have installation guides. So you click on that and the guides are already written for all the protocols you need to go through. So that's attaching the handlebar and saddle to the bike, installing a pedal, putting a magnet on the chainstay, and then riding in the turbo for 2 minutes. They're all sort of already detailed out. We have a testing and training section from memory, and that is an area where you go in and you say, it helps you structure testing rides. You have a live feedback area where you can see live CDA, very similar if you start a ride in your Strava app. And there is a few more, what I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's in a good stage of development. It's not complete. We're still developing it with our app developer, but not far off, that's for sure. We use it in the office quite a lot when we do fun tests. So a lot of the tests we do in the office is we understand our error, or when we ride in the turbo trainer, the horizontal forces should always equal 0. So we do a lot of tests where we don't have a fan on us, because we know everything should equal 0. So it's actually quite an easy test to do. We do ramp tests like power ramps, cadence sweeps, and make sure it all works under all conditions. So yeah, we use it a lot in the office, the app. So that's where we're at. Okay. Okay, couple of minutes left. It's probably worth mentioning as well, I do think there's a few more webinars popping up, so keep an eye on social media. This was a bit more of a technical one in terms of what the system is and how it all works, but keep an eye on social media. There's probably going to be a few more popping up like this, but maybe with different people. So get to know the team a bit better, and obviously head over to Kickstarter so you can be part of the Aero future, really. And thanks everyone for joining. Try and get back. There was a few questions about power. I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible on that as well, about the white paper, and seeing you want a bit more detail about power, but I can try and get back to you on that. So cool.